Yo, this is crazy, man. They got CoreySSG on Law and Crime. And what's even more crazy, I don't know if anybody else is paying attention to this, but CoreySSG is on I'm talking about at least 50 news networks, man. This is wild, man. As you guys can see, top news, right? ABC 13 Houston, right? You got KHOU something. You got Yahoo News. You got Houston Chronicle, Law and Crime News, The Independent. I'm talking about at least 50 news agencies, man. This is crazy. But let's react to this this Law and Crime. They just did a collab here with a retired FBI agent. We're actually going to skip halfway through the video because the first half is pretty much everything we already know already. We've seen all the court documents. I'm sure you guys seen the court documents on so many other channels, so many videos that have been published over the last couple of days. Corey also took to Instagram to post some of these previous tweets, and then he also shared some text messages between him and this girl, one of the victims, the person that reported this kidnapping allegation. So this is Ava right here. This is not the one that we talked about yesterday, that her father is like a doctor or something like that. This is the other one. So actually, let me play in the background this.
And he's currently on the run in Dubai, I think. IDK, but yeah, the FBI should be after him. A pretty wild case that is now ranging across two completely different countries that are thousands of miles away from one another. So let's bring on retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt to get his thoughts on this. Colin, thank you so much for joining me today. What is your reaction to this case, from Pritchett's alleged erratic behavior to trapping these two women allegedly in his car and leaving them stranded on the side of the road, then later fleeing off to Qatar?
Well, I think the first thing for investigators is kind of look at the totality of the circumstances and look at the big picture, as well as look at credibility of who the complainants are, as well as what's really going on here between these two people. And that's based upon the recent instances of YouTubers or bloggers or social media influencers faking in their own kidnappings. So to prevent a waste of resources, they have to just take a step back and kind of look at the big picture. And then, of course, if there is some merit to this, then they're going to have to kind of dig in and find out exactly what really went on between these two.
And investigators also say that, GPS data from Life 360, which was an app that was on one of the women's phones, that helped corroborate their story. Talk to me about how investigators use that type of data to kind of piece together, or at least verify, these types of allegations.
Well, in this case, the victim made it easy for law enforcement to track her because they did have the Life 360 app on there. I'm familiar with the app. It's fantastic.
So this is what Corey wrote. Like I mentioned, he posted a bunch of screenshots of previous tweets of him, I guess, planning to go to Dubai or Qatar or whatever. So it seems like he's going after he disagrees with how the black woman in the video. So if you guys saw the video, there's the host and then the retired FBI agent. So he feels like the black woman in the video didn't do him any justice. But when I tell you, I'm going to share a couple of these. Let me add them here in the background into the video. I'm talking about at least. This is like CoreySSG's got to be America's most wanted individual right now. America's most wanted. Either that or they're using him as some kind of distraction to what's really going on. Because it's crazy. I'm talking about you got People Magazine. People Magazine is posting about a YouTuber and this kidnapping allegation. This is wild.
I have used it with my kids as well. So if that wasn't on there, the first step with all these cases, and even if it's a bank robbery or a fraud case, is going to be the phones, and to look in to see if there's any GPS data, tracking data in that phone to find out and to corroborate what the victim is saying that the assailant did.
Yeah, and it's also, unclear right now, but from what we do know now, do you think the erratic behavior on Pritchett's behalf might have been someone actually after him, as he had told these women allegedly, or do you think there's another reason, possibly like drugs, that kind of made him act erratically during this whole incident?
Well, with the limited information, available, you'd be speculating on why he was acting so erratic. So when somebody's acting erratic, there's some sort of a catalyst or some sort of antecedent that make them do that. So either it's something internal or external, and that's one thing that's going to come out, so to speak, in the wash as the investigators do their investigation and start talking to people and find out why he was behaving in such an odd manner. And then the fact that he fled to Qatar, which is kind of an unusual country to go to because of it. I doubt he speaks Arabic. Does he have some sort of connection to that country?
Yeah, and I was also,
Well, he does have the connection. I mean, he's over there obviously with that girl. What's her name? Precious, right? Isn't that her name? Precious, if I'm not mistaken. So he definitely has contacts over there. But if you listen to what this retired FBI agent is saying, right, they're like trying to figure this out, right? So I think if Corey had come forward and, right, given his side of the story, showed the evidence he has and all that stuff, I think that would have helped him. But him running away and posting all this stuff on social media and kind of taunting these agencies is just going to make him look worse. It's going to make him look worse. Because it seems like, based on what I'm listening to and what this retired agent is saying, is there's a possibility that these investigators don't really have a whole lot. They're kind of trying to put this whole puzzle together. And since he has more than enough evidence to prove that he's innocent, he could have easily, like I said before, they could have poked holes in this story. But him running away and doing all this goofy stuff, I don't know why he's doing it. Is it for social media clicks? Because this shit is serious. This is really serious now. It just makes him look even more suspicious now. And they're probably going to start digging deeper and deeper. And before you know it, man, they might actually look into these raffles.
Ask you what your thoughts are on him fleeing to Qatar. What all goes into extraditing a kidnapping suspect? And in your opinion, how long do you think it'll take before he's actually back in the United States?
Well, the first thing is if we have extradition with Qatar, I'm not aware whether we do or don't for that particular crime because extradition is crime specific. Some crimes are extraditable, some aren't. And then the extradition process is generally very long and takes at least a year to 2 years. Generally, what the authorities do is they just have the country expel or deport the person that's there. It's a much faster process unless the person has some sort of citizenship with that country. And I doubt this gentleman has any citizenship with Qatar.
And do you think that trip was planned this whole time, or do you think he kind of did it as an escape to escape those now criminal charges that he's facing? Because I can't imagine, leaving your children behind to go start a new life in a completely different country and just, leave them behind in Texas.
Well, if he was going to Mexico, I would say there wasn't a lot of thought put into it because obviously it's just right over the border. But to take an international flight, you have to fly through an international hub, whether it be Houston or Los Angeles or New York, and then make a couple of connections to get to Qatar. And then, of course, the flight itself is pretty expensive. And then there is going to be some scrutiny on him on when he lands through the authorities there in Qatar. So there had to be some sort of planning to go into it because, like I said, he's just not driving his car over the border going down to Mexicali. He's going to a foreign country, and it's approximately an 18-hour flight.
Yeah, and booking that one-way ticket as well, too. I can't even imagine kind of going back to this alleged crime as well. Can't imagine what it was like for these two women who were stranded on that highway until they were able to flag down a driver who eventually called 911, and then authorities arrived as well, too. But, kind of going back to the overall alleged offense in this case, what do you kind of make of just leaving two women stranded on a highway and then just, again, fleeing off to a completely different country?
Well, that tells me that there wasn't much thought put into this. It sounds more like this was an impulse crime. He was reacting to some sort of something maybe the women had done to him or vice versa. And this was reaction and he didn't think it through. And then I think finally it kind of dawned on him that what he had done is basically going to land him in jail. And he essentially panicked, kicked him out or put him on the side of the road and then obviously left the country.
See, that's exactly what I was saying before, right? I felt like he was in a position, and obviously he said to you guys, right, he's come out and said that there's mob ties or whatever. They're after him about some car on fire, so he bumped into them, and he felt like these girls are there to set him up. And there might be, he might have valid points. This is what I said before. Something's just not adding up with this whole case because I know Corey is goofy and crazy and stuff like that, but I don't think I just don't see how he would do something like that. Like, I know he would do crazy stuff and he pranks and all that, but I just can't see him kidnapping two girls. There's got to be more. There's something is just not adding up with the story. But nevertheless, they could have poked holes into it if he had evidence. Like, I feel like this case would have gotten dropped if he had sat here, got himself a good attorney. I think this thing would have been dismissed or reduced in charges. But him running away, posting on social media, all this goofy stuff, like taunting the FBI and the police, is just going to make him look bad. Because once they catch him, and they will catch him, the judge, man, all this goofy stuff, it's going to add up.
So he's definitely has a lot going on inside his head, and this case is only going to probably get stranger as the investigators dig in.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier in our discussion, just about his whole social media persona, which is kind of another added layer to this whole entire story. Pritchett has millions of followers across different social media platforms, but then you tack on this alleged behavior and this alleged or this crime as well too. What do you make of all of that, given that he was this kind of apparent rise on social media, and then he got kind of famous as well too, doing family content, and then for this to kind of come out? What do you make of just kind of that Jekyll and Hyde situation that we're kind of seeing all unfold?
Well, that's from where I started with this, that because of his social media presence, law enforcement was going to have to kind of dig in and kind of determine what the motive behind this was. Maybe he had no intent of harming these women. He was just doing this for the classic clicks. Or, like I said, he had something going on in his life that made him panic. But it seems like there's such, in society now, there's such a intense pressure to get quote unquote clicks that we see these social media people doing some amazingly stupid and abhorrent things. And frankly, I think law enforcement and the society as a whole is really kind of getting tired of it. And the hammer is starting to fall on these people for their behaviors.
Now, say Pritchett makes it back to the United States, he's facing this kidnapping charge. How long of a potential sentence or punishment do you think that he could be facing now?
Well, if the federal authorities get involved, I believe you could get up to life in prison for kidnapping. So depending on the circumstances and if it's provable, in this case, he didn't take the victims over state lines. So there's an argument that it's not a federal crime. However, there is a kidnapping statute in Texas. And Texas has a pretty aggressive law enforcement culture there. So he's going to be facing some jail time if it turns out that this was legitimate kidnapping and these women are willing to testify.
All right. Well, Colin, I want to thank you so much for joining me and giving me insight into this case. Before we sign you off, though, anything else you'd like to add?
I think.
All right. So, yeah, that was it, man. Like I said before, I think had he stayed put and got himself a good lawyer or even a decent lawyer, they could have easily poked holes in the story. But him running away and doing all this stuff he's doing now, it's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And it's just going to make the case harder for him once they actually catch him. Because they're not going to release him, right? He might go disappear again. So it's not... Yeah, this is wild. And now that it's gotten the amount of attention it has, I mean, he's got to be America's most wanted person right now. We're talking about 50. I counted at least 50. There's got to be more than that. 50 different news networks. That's crazy. That's wild. But let me know what you guys think in the comments.